As with magazine publishing, the structure of organizations that are involved in book publishing depend to a large extent on the size of the company. So publishers can range in size from small firms that might employ a few people to larger firms that have hundreds of employees involved in various aspects of book publishing. So there's three main areas in book publishing. The first is the editorial department. These are people that are involved in the actual content of books that are published by their firms. The acquisitions editor figures out who to actually sign to contracts for books and looks around for talented newcomers that might be really promising authors. The acquisitions editor also handles subsidiary rights. This is when the content of a book might be used as the basis for a TV show or a film or another kind of media product. So the acquisitions editor in this instance negotiates with parties in these other forms of media. Once a new author has been signed to a contract at a book publisher, then the author works with the developmental editor. This is the person that gives a lot of feedback to the author about drafts for a particular book and gives suggestions for how to tighten up the writing, or change or improve the tone of particular chapters, and so on. And then copy editors take care of more technical issues such as the grammar, sentence structure, the length of the book itself, and again make suggestions for improving the actual writing of the book. The second main area in book publishing is production. These are people that work on the look of the book and its design. These are people that decide what the cover is going to look like, what design will be on the cover, the layout of the book, and the production managers also get into very nitty-gritty stuff like the font and type style of the book. And then the last main area are people that work in the marketing department. These are people that make decisions about who the book is intended to reach, how to market and promote the book, how much advertising should be devoted to the book, and where the advertising should be placed. And essentially, this department tries to figure out how to increase the sales for the book. These two pie charts illustrate how a book's revenue is divided and compares the distribution for this revenue for a typical hardcover title in traditional book publishing and the same title distributed as and sold as an e-book. First, it's important to note that the total revenue is very different, that a typical hardcover edition of a book might sell for $26 in a bookstore, while that same title is roughly half the price bought as an e-book at Amazon.com, perhaps for $12.99. So just I think a couple things that are notable in terms of comparing these two pie charts. One is that it's clear that the bookseller, the bookstore, the retail outlet, makes a much greater proportion of the revenue in the hardcover title versus the online title. That you see that the bookseller gets almost half of the revenue from sales of a book in a regular bookstore, but online it looks like it's that the retail outlet gets less than a quarter of the revenue for each book. I think the other thing that is of note is the pretty dramatic difference in the share of the revenue that goes to the publisher. I mean, wow, look at that. In the hardcover title, the publisher gets less than $1. It's a sliver in that chart. Whereas for the ebook, the publisher gets a little more than half of the revenue from that ebook. It looks like the a proportion of the revenue for each book for the author's royalty is a little bit more for the ebook. The proportion of the revenue for the book that goes to the author is a bit more for the ebook. However, in terms of the dollar amount, since the ebook costs roughly half the price of the hardcover title, even though the author is getting a bit more in terms of the proportion of the revenue for the ebook, the actual amount that the author gets in royalties decreases somewhat for the ebook, just because the ebook sells for less. Large retail chains like Barnes & Noble and Borders and Walden Books increasingly dominated retail sales of books in the 1980s and 1990s. These superstores would carry a broad range of titles in many different subject areas. And these superstores and chains often had a very close, tight relationship with some of the major publishers, and they would have relationships where major publishers would make arrangements with the chains to promote and market particular titles that the publishers wanted to sell, and so they would make arrangements so that a lot of retail space was devoted to displays featuring certain titles by these publishers. Now, the dominance of these superstores and chains received a lot of criticism because there were concerns that at this time these retail chains were having too much influence over the book publishing business. That is, if a major chain like Barnes & Noble decided not to carry a particular title, that might make it much more difficult for that book or author to be successful. And also this cozy arrangement between the major publishers and the major chains kind of left smaller independent publishers out in the cold. Now, the growth of these superstores, of these chains, took place at the expense of independent bookstores in different cities and areas that found it increasingly difficult to survive given the ability of these large chains to lower prices for some of the more popular titles. Now, more recently, of course, it's these large chains and superstores that have increasingly struggled with the success of online retailers like Amazon.com. So, for instance, we've seen Borders shut its doors. So people are increasingly gravitating to buying books online, both traditional books, printed books, and e-books, electronic books as well. And there's some clear advantages to buying books on these sites. It's very convenient. It's much more convenient to buy books at Amazon.com than to get in your car and go to an actual bookstore. And the prices for books on these sites like Amazon.com are much lower than retail prices in physical stores. And you can buy a much broader range of titles online than you can in an actual physical bookstore that is limited in terms of how many titles it can carry. You really don't have those kinds of limits with online sites. Now, of course, the big player that's really transformed the business here is Amazon.com. That has really been an instrumental player in the shift from traditional printed publishing to ebooks. And again, people go to Amazon.com to actually buy printed books as well as ebooks. But there are some questions about the scope of the power and influence that Amazon.com increasingly has in book publishing. As the chapter discusses, there's been a complicated relationship between the major book publishers and Amazon as a increasingly powerful retail outlet. The publishers are worried that Amazon, as such a powerful retailer, is increasingly dictating the terms for the sales of books online. And also there is the concern that in book publishing, Amazon is increasingly a vertically integrated company. It's established its own publishing unit, Amazon Publishing, where it will actually sign publishers to contracts for books and then sell its books online on its own site. So again, vertically integrated, and that raises questions about whether or not this vertical integration could increase Amazon's clout and power in book publishing and perhaps lead to certain anti-competitive practices. And it's clear that Amazon is really flexing its muscles in book publishing. It has really been very aggressive in trying to cut prices for book titles online far below the price that book publishers want to sell their books. But now that's good for consumers. Now, the biggest rivals to Amazon.com are Apple with its iBookstore and Google Play. These three companies, Amazon, Apple, and Google, are the main online retailers for books today, and they are increasing their dominance at the expense of traditional book retailers.